Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 5 a.m. last week, but 5 a.m. live stream on Dr. Kill's channel. And yes, this is still Dr. Kill's show. He will be back, I believe, sometime next week. And Alia is on vacation as well, so they left me here by themselves. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to wait a couple of minutes to have people come in. Good morning, Amy, Paul, Lois, Haley, Angela, Papa Carnivore, CB, Steve, Brian, United Carnivore, and welcome, everyone. This morning we have David Reid here with us, and we are going to listen to his story. And if you have any questions, post them in the chat. I will try to get to the questions. I'm handling everything here today, so I'm sorry if I missed some of the questions, okay? So, David, why don't you start with telling us? Oh, before we do that, some housekeeping. Remember, sign up for the Kills Mighty Tribe at drkills.com. If you're not a member, please sign up over there. It's free. And we are going to be giving away today Kills Electrolytes. Okay. And the hashtag is going to be hashtag David. Okay. So put it in the chat, hashtag David, wherever you're watching this from. All right. So, David, welcome this morning here. This is the last week we're going to be doing this at 5 a.m. Starting next week, we are going to be at 6 a.m. Eastern time. We're making a switch, see how people like it. So, David, why don't you give us a little bit of background about you, who you are, and tell us a little bit about your story.
Okay. Well, I've been kind of dealing with health issues most of my life. I was actually born with bronchitis. I spent a lot of time in the hospital as a kid, in and out of like oxygen tents, that kind of thing. And when I was 13, I got an autoimmune disease called myasthenia gravis. Actually, I think I was about 12 when it started developing. They diagnosed me when I was 13, and my mom, she was a researcher, and she found me. She found a doctor a fair ways away from us in Canada, and we went there, and he put me on an elimination diet and some vitamins and supplements, and I was in remission within a few months, and I stayed that way for almost 30 years. And then it started coming back, and by the time it started coming back, I didn't remember, the stuff that had happened when I was 12 or 13, how they had dealt with it. So I was actually I got so sick, I was bedridden for about 10 years and needed a wheelchair before that, and I couldn't stand or walk unassisted. And with somebody helping me, I could stand and walk a bit, but not a lot. I was on 19 prescriptions, and so a ton of different medications, lots of painkillers, different kinds, and lots of medications to deal with side effects from other medications. And I was in pretty bad shape. By the time they finally diagnosed me, they had found a total of 7 autoimmune diseases. And the worst one being the myasthenia gravis, which is what caused me to be bedridden. And I also had osteoarthritis and Sjogren's disease, ankylosing spondylitis, eczema, psoriasis. Yeah, there are definitely lots of them in there. And I also weighed about 540 pounds at my worst. And the doctors didn't seem to have any answers. They didn't hold out much hope. After about 10 or 12 years, nothing was getting better. Nothing was improving. So I couldn't live like that anymore. I decided to start doing my own research, and I tried all kinds of things. Some worked, some helped a bit, some didn't. And I got onto the keto diet to start losing weight. And that worked for a while. And then I wound up going off of keto for a while during the world silliness. And so all my depression and everything came back really, really bad once I went off keto, and I put on a ton of weight back on. So I ballooned back up to I think it was 480 pounds or something. So I went back on keto, started losing weight again, and then I got stuck and just couldn't budge any further. And I still had the other issues. I mean, I could move around better. I could walk unassisted, just couldn't get very far. And, things were slowly improving, but I was still pretty sick and still had all the arthritis and the pain and swelling in the joints and all that. And then one day I was doing some praying, and I changed how I was doing the praying. And so I got a different answer than I used to get. And about a day later or a day and a half later, I ran across a video by Dr. Barry.
How long ago was that?
I was looking for, sorry?
How long ago was that? When you first ran?
Oh, that would have been, that was about December 2022 that I was looking into this. And I ran across that video, and it was about weight loss. That's what I was doing research on. And he started talking about healing autoimmune disease with carnivore. And as soon as he said that, something clicked. And I just knew somehow that this was the answer I was looking for. But my wife wasn't too keen on the idea, and we kind of went back and forth for a little bit. And I did some more research, and I finally pulled the trigger. So January 16th, 2023 is when I officially started carnivore. And it was about 2 weeks later, I got up one day and I went to grab one of my bottles of vitamins that I was always taking at the time. And I realized the pain in my hands was gone. And I looked down and the swelling was gone. And I could actually see the tendons in the back of my hand for the first time in 20 years.
How many days after you started?
That was about 2 weeks in.
2 weeks.
Yeah. So the arthritis pain and the joint pain and everything started going away at that point. And it's the only time I have an issue now is if I accidentally get some contamination in my food with seed oil or something. Then my joints will swell up for a few days. But other than that, I don't have issues with that. And it was interesting because in that 2 to 3 week period, there were some major changes. So at 2 weeks, I had to go out and get a blood test done. And just the day I happened to go, the elevator was broken. So I had to take the stairs coming back up, which was very, very difficult. I still had a ton of muscle weakness, and it took me about 15 minutes to get up the stairs, just like one floor, It was like 2 flights per floor. It took me about 15 minutes. And by the time I got to the top, I was absolutely done. I mean, I had to use both arms once on the rail, one step at a time. And it was all I could do to make it. And then I couldn't move for about 3 hours. Just absolutely couldn't move off the couch. I was just done. And a week later, I had to go out again for another test. And they were fixing what had broken on the elevator the week before. So the elevator was down again. But this time I walked up the stairs like a normal person, one hand on the rail. I was winded when I got to the top because really bad shape, but I recovered in a few minutes, and I realized that this was huge. I mean, that was a massive, massive breakthrough for me. And things started healing one after another over the weeks after that. At about, well, I was 1 month carnivore exactly when my neurologist, that's the blood tests I had been getting were for my neurologist. I had a telephone appointment with her exactly 1 month to the day after starting carnivore. And she asked me a few questions, looked at the blood results, and declared me officially in remission for myasthenia gravis. Took me off the last of my autoimmune medications. And haven't looked back. I mean,
Are you taking any medication?
I'm not going to. Right I'm not. No medications. No, zero.
No medication.
The only supplements I take is for my thyroid. Now, I had tried to treat it naturally a number of different ways. I initially started off with some turmeric and garlic powder and stuff like that, and it wasn't doing anything, and it was making my skin worse. But I kept experimenting. I got myself some Lugol's formula iodine and tried various doses of that. Still wouldn't fix it. My thyroid was still totally out of whack. My doctor was really pressuring me to take Synthroid. So as in a last-ditch effort, I did one last bit of research and ran across something called NAC with molybdenum and selenium. Started taking that, and within a couple of months, all my thyroid numbers normalized, and my thyroid's been pretty good since. I've tried adjusting dosages a few times, but I still need the NAC. I had some blood tests at the beginning of April that kind of confirmed that I still need to take that. But
so you mentioned 7 different autoimmune conditions, right? Yeah. And you're not at the moment taking basically any medication for any of those. And
no, zero medications.
And you started this basically almost 2.5 years ago, beginning of 23. That was my beginning on keto, and then June that year I went carnivore, and I have eliminated a bunch of prescriptions as well. How many prescriptions were you at some point taking? You mentioned them. How many?
Yeah, I was at about 19 prescriptions. And by the time I started keto, I had already eliminated some. I was taking extraordinarily high doses of morphine for like 12, 13 years, something called Hydromorph. And I was on really large doses of that. So it took me about 9 months to taper off of that. But I did that in 2019. And once I got off all the pain medications and could start thinking again, then I started adding the vitamins and some other techniques I'd been playing with and reducing medications. And by the time I started carnivore, I was down to, I think, 4 medications. And then by the time I was 5 weeks carnivore, I was 0 medications.
Amazing. But for those who don't know, hydromorphone is also, the brand name is Dilaudid. That's the medication you were taking. I have done some pain management myself, and a lot of my advice, I was already advising very low carbohydrate diet, and but most patients didn't believe me. Uh, so they're very reluctant to change, uh,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Well,
Uh,
the thing that I noticed as I go along, more stuff keeps healing. Um, my eyesight's improved tremendously since I started carnivore. I still need glasses out, just out and about, do normal stuff. When I sit at the computer, I usually don't anymore, and that was a pretty big deal. I noticed that about 4 months in, my bipolar started going away, and by the time I hit 6 months, I realized I hadn't had any episodes for a while. So, and I haven't had a bipolar incident since. And
Amazing, huh?
I've also got, I found out about 3 years ago that I've got Asperger's, which actually helped to explain a lot about things growing up and just how I get along in the world. And, one of the biggest issues that I had with Asperger's is OCD. And within a few weeks, my OCD started mostly going away. And I'd say the OCD itself is probably 95% gone. I still get the odd thing occasionally. I can still get overwhelmed. If there's a lot of stuff going on around me, or there's stuff that keeps changing, if people keep changing their mind on things, that can really still trigger my Asperger's. But for the most part, the OCD is pretty much gone, and even the other Asperger's symptoms are significantly reduced. So that's been another big thing.
Yeah,
And I think
we keep hearing the
one of the best,
story: anxiety, depression, bipolar, OCD, all these things getting better. Uh,
yeah,
Autoimmune, it's basically the result of inflammation. And it seems that most autoimmune diseases, even if you don't get rid of them completely, can get better with just a diet change. Who would have
yeah,
thought that?
yeah. And the lack of knowledge of nutrition and metabolics in Western medicine is kind of disturbing. And when I started researching all of this, researching the things that have happened with food and the food guides, and how food production has changed and habits have changed and diseases have changed along with it. And I don't know if it started off um, as a greed thing, but it certainly seems to be there now. And it's hard to get change happening in the food industry because there's so much momentum, so much money involved. And it's been a slow burn. And there's some countries are really trying to fight against people being able to be carnivore. Um, some countries it's fine, other countries not so much. My country, for instance, I live in Canada. Um, there's been a lot of pushback against carnivore and alternative health here, and we just had an election yesterday, and the same government got back in, and they've promised to do even more of that. So it could get difficult to be a carnivore in Canada fairly soon. So
Wow.
we're doing everything we can. We're some of us in the community are getting together and trying to keep pressure on the government to
Should diet
allow us to keep eating meat.
should diet be political?
Uh, it shouldn't. It is. It's very political. It shouldn't
No,
be,
I understand it is. It's the fact,
but
but doesn't
yeah,
seem to be something that should be political in the way of eating. Unfortunately, there are big interests behind the scenes all the time.
yeah.
Uh,
Well,
all right,
they
so
actually they slipped a law through Parliament here a couple of years ago. Well, actually, not quite. About I guess about a year ago now. They slipped a law into the books that in the event of a pandemic, they will automatically outlaw meat if there's another pandemic. They view it as a disease vector to process and distribute meat to the public during a pandemic. That's their excuse. So if there's another pandemic, carnivore will be outlawed in Canada.
we'll be in trouble.
That's yeah, that's scary stuff. You know, they're when they start doing this kind of stuff, they start having to drive us underground just to stay alive. It's because for people like me, if I couldn't be carnivore, I would die fairly quickly. I wasn't that far away from death's door when I started this healing journey, and
Uh,
yeah,
you
I'd be back
mentioned
really quickly.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. You mentioned your weight a couple of times. How much have you lost?
About 240 pounds altogether. Part of that was on keto, to be fair, but uh,
Well, I
uh,
think many of
oh,
us start with keto and then move on to carnivore. You
yeah.
lost, you've lost a more than one person, 240 pounds. Uh, that's
And
amazing.
it presents its own challenges when you're losing that much weight. Um, I'm sure there's a few out there that have gone through this. You know, one of the big things that I deal with is all the hanging skin. So, you know, every once in a while I'll do some fasting. I only eat once a day usually. You know, I'm trying to get that skin to shrink, but when you got that much shrinkage that you need, it's just not going to happen naturally, I don't think. So
And
I've got
you
about
know,
another.
unfortunately, facts of life, and some people are able to the way of eating and exercise decrease the way that looks. But when you do lose that much weight, you're always gonna have some. And but if I gave you a choice to have your skin all tight but have all your diseases back, I
Yeah, not going to happen.
I think we know the answer to that, right?
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
definitely, many will find it worth it. All right, let's take some
Well,
questions.
yeah.
Go ahead.
I just want to say one last thing before we get to the questions is, you know, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's been sunshine and rainbows since I started this thing. You know, I've still got health issues. I've got damage, physical damage that was left over by all the autoimmune stuff. I've got surgery sometime in the next couple of months. I'll be getting surgery on my neck. They'll be replacing a disc and pulling out a bunch of bone spurs and stuff and putting in a like a titanium spacer thing and fusing it all together. So I've got, you know, there's definitely some things left to do, left to heal. But I wouldn't even be in a position to be able to do this without carnivore. It's there's just no way. I mean, the day that I was able to officially move out of the wheelchair accessible apartment was an incredible day. That was that was a life-changing day. It completely changed the direction of my life.
Very good. All right, so I'm thinking. I'm sorry if I missed any questions, but here's a question: how did you pray differently? You mentioned that you started praying differently?
Yeah, that, that's a really good question. From the time I started getting sick, I used to pray for healing. And the church that I belong to, we do the laying on of hands and blessings for health and that kind of thing. And I was told on more than one occasion that I would not be healed in that manner. That basically God was saying no. And the change that I made in prayer was, instead of asking for direct healing, I asked to be led to knowledge that would help me heal. And that's when I found Dr. Barry. That's how I changed. Instead of demanding how God does it, I opened myself up and said, lead me and I'll follow.
Okay.
And that was the difference.
Haley had a very similar question here, which you just answered, I guess. Can you talk more about NAC?
Yeah. So I take, NEC, it stands for a big long name about yay long, which I can never remember. So
And
to me, it's just,
acetyl
yeah.
cysteine.
Yeah. So and it also has the, when I first started it out, it came with selenium and molybdenum in it in microdoses. Unfortunately, I had to switch brands because the brand I was taking, although it did help, it had a filler which was triggering one of my autoimmune diseases. So it had like a methyl cellulose or something in it, I think. So I had to find a brand, which was actually very difficult, but I found a brand that didn't have that stuff in it. So now I have to take a separate selenium supplement. I no longer take molybdenum, but it seems to be fine. I was taking 1,200 milligrams a day when I first started of the NAC. I took 600 milligrams twice a day. And then I tried dropping it to just 600 milligrams once a day. And then my recent blood test showed me that although my T4 and T3 were still fine, my TSH was a little high. Now, there can be other causes for that. I understand that. But in my case and my history, that kind of told me that I needed to up my dose of NAC a little bit, but not to the levels it was. So I just switched a couple of days ago to 900 milligrams once a day, and then the separate selenium. And I also take iodine.
Iodine?
Yeah.
I don't take the NAC anymore, but I used to when I was getting my treatments, weekly treatments, and I was doing the pulse press adjunct therapy to my regular therapy for 6 weeks. That was one of the supplements that I was doing a few days a week, along with fasting before and after my treatments. And it's also has some anti-glutamic properties.
And unlike many carnivores, I do occasionally still use certain plant medicines. When I was doing all of my research, I've run across a couple of things that can be helpful. Normally, carnivores don't have a lot of issues getting sick, but sometimes we do. I mean, when our body is prioritizing healing other areas, we can still get sick with common colds and stuff like that. And I found, I found some plant medicines. It's mushrooms. It's actually a type of medicinal mushroom. Actually, a mixture of 5 to 7 different types of mushrooms. And usually, if I feel a cough or sore throat coming on, I dose up with that, and the next day it's gone. And it's a lot of carnivores don't agree with using any plants for any reason, anytime. But I've developed a philosophy of I use what works. I don't care what the politics are.
I would still use them as medicine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And okay, Papa Carnivore says, "Wow, 19 prescriptions down to 0. That's the power of carnivore. I was on 10 meds, now only 1, levothyroxine for hypothyroidism." Thank you for sharing your study. You mentioned flare-ups occur when you accidentally are exposed to oils. How does that occur?
Well, I'll give you an example. The last time it happened, my wife and I went out for like our anniversary dinner. We wanted to go out to eat, and we found a place in town that started doing carnivore dishes. And they were trying to be careful, but they didn't clean the grill well enough, I think. I don't know for sure. The carnivore plate that I had like 4 different things on it, so any one of them could have had even just a microscopic amount of seed oil. It takes, for me specifically, it just the tiniest amount, and it triggers a reaction. Usually within an hour, I'm in pain, and then my joints will start swelling up, and I'm usually sick like that for 3 or 4 days, sometimes longer, depending on how much seed oil I got.
Some people are very sensitive. I don't know what I did this week. I was having a little bit of inflammation on my hand, but it went away. So um, have to be careful with those, in particular seed oils. It seems to trigger a lot of people.
Just to give you a quick idea of where I was at when I was first diagnosed with all of this stuff. By the time they officially diagnosed me in 2012, I couldn't speak, couldn't swallow solid food. I was on liquids only. Couldn't stand unassisted, couldn't walk unassisted. I could barely breathe. And I was, this close to not making it. If they hadn't diagnosed me when they did, they figured I would have lasted maybe another month, 4 to 6 weeks, something like that. Yeah. As soon as they diagnosed me, they sent me immediately into the hospital. I was admitted right there. I didn't even get to go back to the hotel room.
This was with the myasthenia gravis.
Yeah. That was the big one.
Yeah,
that's what caused the muscle weakness.
It can get very dangerous to the point that you need intubation and all that, because your muscles can basically stop working, and you don't breathe. There are multiple. It can get very serious, and being completely off medication, it's most doctors, I'm sure, they're gonna say, "Oh, it's just the disease went on remission on its own," because it does.
Yeah, I remember it was kind of funny because at the time I was starting all of this, I belonged to a lot of myasthenia gravis groups. And when I hopped into groups and told them that I was officially in remission, everybody was freaking out. They were like, "How did you do that?" And I told them, and some groups immediately banned me. "Oh, you can't cure this with diet. You're lying. You're out of here." They just weren't interested in even hearing about it, which I found so surprising. And I'd run across a couple other people that were trying the carnivore diet in those groups. One person in particular, he was trying to do keto, and then he just couldn't stomach it. It was I think it was a religious thing for him. He was Seventh-day Adventist, and he just couldn't stay on keto or carnivore. He kept going back vegetarian, and every time he went back vegetarian, he would wind up back in the hospital with serious issues. And it was just, his wife was getting so worried and so frustrated because she was in contact with me and one other person that was using carnivore for myasthenia gravis, and he wouldn't accept it. He couldn't stay on it. And I wound up with everything that blew up over that. I wound up just leaving the group over it, and lost a few friends, got blocked, that kind of stuff.
It's amazing how people react to some of these things, whether it's politics
Yeah.
or sometimes anything else. Uh, I was mentioned yesterday, I was banned from a anxiety, depression, and bipolar illness group because I was suggesting to people that they go low carb and that they read Dr. Christopher Palmer's and Dr. Georgia Aid's books, and I was banned from the book from the group,
Yeah.
and I was one of the moderators. They still banned me.
Yeah, I've experienced that. It's funny. You know, uh, Here in Canada, it can be difficult to get a new doctor. So a lot of times you just don't have a choice. Many people here are without doctors. So um, when I got this new doctor, and he was looking at my chart, and he was saying, he says, I'm having a hard time imagining you being this unhealthy. How have you done this? How have you changed? So I ran, at this point I had lost about 180 pounds, something like that. And, all these huge changes in my life. And as soon as I told him I'd done it with diet, with carnivore, then he immediately starts telling me, oh, how unhealthy that is and how dangerous it is and how I'm going to give myself a heart attack or a stroke. It's like,
It completely
I,
completely went out the window that you have become this different person altogether.
yeah,
All these diseases improved,
yeah,
all the weight lost, and but that's gonna give you a heart attack. And I
yeah,
always wonder because the diet has become so popular where all the people dropping dead from heart attacks all the time. Now you by the way, it doesn't matter what you eat. At some point you can have a heart attack, you can have a stroke, you can have cancer. Okay, those are the most people die from mostly those things at the end. Uh and I don't know myself how long I'm gonna be here, but I want to be here the remaining of my years as healthy as I can be. And I myself find that I am healthier and I have reduced my risks for those things to a point where I'm very happy with where things are.
yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't change it for anything. Oh, because my cholesterol might be a little high. It's
Yeah, it's funny when he did, after switching to this new doctor, he ran a set of blood tests, and they came back, and he's like, they must have messed up at the lab. I've got to send you for another set of tests.
why.
Because he couldn't believe that my results could be so good living on carnivore diet. It just didn't compute in his head. And then the times there's been like 3 different times where he's wanted to put me on a medication for something. And I said, well, now that I know what it is, let me research it and see if I can come up with a natural solution, which I've done every time. And I think the last time when I figured out how to treat my thyroid with natural supplements, I think I almost broke him. And it took a long time. It probably took over a year. But this doctor finally realizes that I might actually kind of know what I'm doing. And he doesn't
Results
try and,
matter. Results matter,
yeah,
huh?
exactly. I mean, he's seen me keep this up now for over 2 years, and the health just keeps improving. So
Yeah.
there's not much he can say anymore.
Working on me says I have to figure out how to move to the USA.
I hear you working on me. Um, I'm fortunate in that I live in Alberta, and we've got a conservative provincial government, and they've already promised that if the government wound up getting back in, that we have, then one of the next things on the ballot here in Alberta is going to be separation. A lot of people are pretty serious about it. Before the election, we were already at over 33% in favor of separation here in Alberta. So
Wow.
this is going to, I
Uh,
think, push it over the edge.
I hear there's some country looking for a 51st state.
Well, I think Alberta could stand alone as its own country quite nicely. We've got most of the natural resources that are in Canada, especially gas and oil. We've got some of the largest natural gas and oil reserves in the world. Right now, we have to give a lot of our profits to the rest of Canada in something they call transfer payments. So every year, the provinces that have give to the provinces that have not. And the last couple of decades, it's been mostly Alberta supporting the rest of the country. So it's but I want to get off the subject of politics. That's
yes.
That's a kind of a touchy one right now in Canada. So
Especially since we just became monetized again after a few years, Dr. Kilt's channels. But all right.
Dr. Kilt's is he's a really unique character. I got to meet him last year when I was down at Hack Your Health in Austin, Texas. And talking to him is so amazing. He just immediately makes you feel like the most important person in his world. And his knowledge in this community is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. I love Dr. Kilt's.
I was there last year. Did we get to talk by any chance?
I think we did. You do look kind of familiar. I know I'd gotten up a couple of times during the Q&A stuff on some of the presentations. Mm-hmm. And so I had a lot of people kind of coming up to me afterwards asking me about my story and stuff. So.
All right. Haley asks, what do your meals look like in a day now?
Well, I would say 60% of the time I eat ground beef. Lots of ground beef. It's been a struggle to get regular ground beef. It can be hard to get. Everybody wants to sell you lean, and trying to get fat from some of the stores, or not stores, some of the butcher shops and stuff. It's getting more and more difficult because they're making other products with it, and they don't want to sell it just as fat. So, we still have sources. I buy, if I don't have enough fat that I'm getting off of meat that I'm trimming. We've got like a local Hutterite colony. We buy like big gallon things of rendered lard if we need some extra. But typically it's ground beef. If it doesn't have enough fat in it, then I'll add a lot more fat. When I cook the hamburgers, I take all the captured melted fat and pour it over the burger to eat it with. I do a lot of, when I'm not eating hamburger, we do some chicken, some bacon. I do a fair amount of fish, like salmon and stuff like that. Salmon fillets, whatnot. The great thing about salmon fillets, the wild caught stuff, is you can just throw it in the pan frozen and cook it up. It's pretty convenient that way. We've got a big giant air fryer. It's like it's a Ninja XL. It's like a great big one. I can actually cook a chicken in it, like a whole chicken, even a small turkey. So I use that a lot. It's got like infrared elements as well, so I can broil stuff like burgers and steaks. I can get a bit of a browning on it. Most of the steaks we eat, I'll buy the whole primal, the whole roast, cut it up myself. That's how we afford carnivore. One of the first things my wife thought when I switched to carnivore was our grocery bill was going to go through the roof. And what I discovered is we spend less on groceries now than we used to, because I'm not going out and having ribeye steaks every day. If you wanted to do that, you can certainly spend a lot more than a regular diet. But if you do like I do, and you shop for deals, you use a lot of ground beef, it's cheaper because you're not buying all the condiments and sauces and wasting food. that kind of thing. So,
Yeah, and
um,
it also depends on, you know, I guess how old you are, what kind of job you do, and how many times you go out on the road and you have to go into a gas station or coffee shop, and you spend $5 to $10 nowadays on a cup of coffee with a bunch of stuff that shouldn't be eating anyways. And
yeah.
uh, so if you can spend almost $10 on something like that, certainly that would be worth investment to pay $10 a pound for some lower quality ribeye. Because if you want to have the best ribeye, then it's probably going to cost you a lot more. But
Yeah.
I paid $8.99 for a rib section a few weeks ago. I cut it up into, it was almost 13 pounds. I cut it up in 12, a little bit over a pound steak. And just last night, I made the last one left for my wife. I had two of them yesterday. So I salt them, put them in a tray in the refrigerator, let them, you know, it didn't last more than 4 days. Yeah.
Yeah, we go through lots of meat and fat here. That's for sure. Um, my wife hasn't gone carnivore. She really struggles with sugar. I mean, it's very addictive. And I see Eve's question there about motivation.
Yeah.
And
Do
when I
you have a
first
problem
started,
with motivation? This has been
not
one of my problems with the ADHD.
yeah, I mean, generally, I haven't had a lot of problems with motivation because, I mean, I'm motivated by the health I've achieved. So I tend to stick to the diet pretty close. But I will say I've had my challenges. I after a while, I think all carnivores we start to get a little bit bored sometimes. So we want to bring back some of the stuff that we kind of liked before, but in a carnivore way. So I started watching some cooking channels and making some sauces, carnivore sauces and stuff. But almost all of them have dairy to some degree or another. And man, I was warned. Midlife Carnivore warned me about not getting caught up with trying to use dairy. I didn't listen. I should have.
So how
It
does it
cost
affect you
me
when you have dairy?
dairy. Well, my system doesn't deal with dairy that well in the first place. I've come to the conclusion.
Trigger some of those
But
autoimmune issues?
well, it didn't start causing
Or
autoimmune stuff really, but
okay.
the cravings. I started
Uh,
getting cravings for sugar and more dairy. And I should have known. I mean, dairy products they've got L-casein in it, which is, I mean, I spent how many years on morphine, and L-casein is kind of a similar structure to morphine. And no, it was definitely not good for me. I got caught up in more and more dairy, and next thing I knew, I was starting to have big mugs of tea with honey, and I darn near blew the diet right there. That almost cost me big. And when
I
to
think
get
what
back
pulls
off the
us,
sugar was a struggle.
yeah, I think what pulls us back to, becoming more strict, if you veer off a little bit and you realize you get problems, is you've experienced a lot of healing. And once you realize, okay, this is causing maybe some harm, and you look back, okay, I was doing pretty good not taking that. I had asked you off camera before if you drink coffee. You said no. So that's another thing that uh, it is not carnivore, and some people do drink coffee. And hey, I'm not going to go to your house and tell you not to do it, but it is not carnivore. Carnivore, that's the bottom line. If you drink coffee and you don't have a problem with it, doesn't cause any issues for you, then more power to you. Uh, I admire when someone is very strict, because they basically have discovered that this thing or the other thing is not the best for them, and they've discovered that staying within your lane is beneficial. So, how old is David?
I'm 58.
58.
I'll be 59 this summer. So basically the same age as Dr. Baker.
Youngins.
Not quite as big as him though. I'm only about 6'3". He's about 6'5". So
Yeah. Yeah, I have somewhere a picture. Oh, I don't have it in the computer here. I have a picture with me in the middle between Dr. Chafee and Dr. Baker that I took. We was taken in Hack Your Health in Austin last year.
yeah.
So I have Dr.
Yeah, I
Chafee
got
on
my
one
picture with
side,
him.
Dr. Baker on the other side, and I look. Yeah, I'm a foot shorter than him.
You know, the thing I really loved about Hack Your Health was just the community. I got to meet so many people that I knew from online, and just to be able to chat with like-minded people and tell our stories to each other and learn about, you know, the latest research and stuff going on and just all the support. It was absolutely an amazing experience. I loved it.
It was
Absolutely
great.
loved it.
That was the first time I met in person Dr. Kiltz. We had a lot of fun this time in 2025 is November. I forget what the date is, but it's gonna be here in Tampa. I live in Florida, and we're gonna have a booth, and I think we're gonna have a lot of fun. It's fun to meet other people like-minded. Haley says it is crazy how some people are so dead set against carnivore.
Yeah, it's conditioning. It's, you know, I mean, we've had 70 or 80 years of conditioning and propaganda and literal brainwashing on the subject of nutrition. And
And it still
let
goes
me
on.
ask you a question. When you went to medical school, how many hours of nutrition training did you actually get?
Not many. Most of the nutritional stuff that I remember getting would be in when I was doing my rotations and patients were on total parenteral nutrition (TPN), which is when you're mixing up stuff and giving it to them intravenously because they cannot eat, or putting that in their tubes. I mean, we got the basics, obviously, biology, biochemistry, organic chemistry, microbiology, and all these things. Always, you mention what the fats are, what the proteins are, what the carbohydrates are, and how many calories they have, and kind of a lot of basic stuff. But I personally, all the nutritional stuff, I have done it after medical school. I used to be very heavy into supplements, and I educated myself in the nutritional alternative medicine things, but it wasn't taught in class.
I want to give a shout out to a lady by the name of Dr. Christina Mathewson. She's a naturopath, and she's actually she's out of Australia. She's helped a lot of people over there, and right now she's in medical school to become a full-blown doctor, and absolutely love it. I think she's doing great things over there, and she helped me a fair bit when I first started in this journey, and she's helped a lot of people over time, and I just wanted to give her a shout out, just
All
to
right.
let her know I'm thinking about her and we support her, and keep going hard.
Brian asked, "Did your doctors accept you going the carnivore way of eating?"
Well, it's an interesting question. My family doctor, not so much. He's more accepting of it now because he's kind of seen the results after a couple of years, but he's still not real keen on it. My neurologist, on the other hand, she was very supportive of my natural healing journey because she saw that I wasn't having any progress with medications. And, she was more receptive. I wound up with her as a doctor because my original neurologist fired me as a patient because I kept asking about alternative therapies because the medications weren't working. So he fired me and transferred me to one of his students. Well, not student exactly. She was a full-blown neurologist at that point, but she was like one of his proteges, and he knew she had a little bit more acceptance for natural medicine, so he shifted me over to her, and it was the best thing he could have done for me because she worked with me. I would tell her what I was doing, and she would give me the appropriate blood tests and to see if something worked. And she wasn't always trying to talk me out of it. She was very supportive. So I do understand that that's quite rare in Western medicine, but, and don't get me wrong, I am not against Western medicine. I really am not. They have some areas of weakness, but if I get in a car accident or I need a heart transplant, Western medicine is where I want to be. Let's be honest.
Yeah, definitely.
But if I've got some kind of metabolic disease, I don't want the medical profession's help beyond telling me what's wrong with me, because they don't have answers. They're, for the most part.
All right.
It's changing. But
Working on Me says getting people to change for the better is hard with everything. I know I'm Canadian.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it's unbelievable the number of times I've, made posts about my health, and then, at the bottom I'm talking about the fact that I'm carnivore and that's what's done it. And every once in a while I get somebody that just gets in there and, they're trying to rip me a new one. They're, bringing out all this ancient medical dogma that's been completely debunked nowadays. And they just start attacking and going after anybody that looks like they don't accept standard American diet. It's phenomenal how many times I run across that, how many times I run across people that are very interested in how I've done it until I tell them about the diet. Well, I can't give up sugar. I'm not going to give up this. I'm not going to give up that. I'll just stay sick.
I had that experience happen just a couple of days ago. I visited someone who had a mild stroke, and they knew that I had a stroke in my past 6.5 years ago. And so as soon as I started talking very low carb and okay, behavior is very difficult. I want to give one more chance. Anyone who has not entered #David, please do it now wherever you are. Like, share, comment, subscribe. We're on multiple channels here, Dr. Kill's channels and my very little own channels. Please subscribe to all of them. drkills.com. That's where you can sign up for the Kills Mighty Tribe if you're not a member yet. We will always have the basic membership is going to always continue to be free. We had last night another wonderful guest talking about mental issues, as a matter of fact. So #David, and I am going to pull that up in a second. And
yeah, I hear you on that, Jazzy Mama. Makes you want a few freezers full of meat. Yeah, one of the first things we did after I went carnivore was bought another freezer. So we've got a small apartment chest freezer, and I've got
Hmm.
a standalone upright freezer that's like the size of a small fridge, and then I've got the little freezer compartment in the fridge. So
Yeah. I have my refrigerator in the main one in the kitchen, and then I have one refrigerator that keeps pretty cold, actually. Sometimes things freeze over even in the refrigerator part. And then I have another standalone, uh, standing refrigerator. I mean, freezer. Yeah, so I have a freezer and a refrigerator in the garage. All right. Let
yeah, I think we've
me.
got just enough space. As everything was empty, I'm pretty sure we could hold a side of beef.
So I hope everybody put hashtag David. Let's see. Can you see the screen with the? Yeah, I think you can. Okay. Let's see who the winner is. Brenda Foley. Brenda, if you can
Nice.
email Alia at drkiltz.com, spelled out Alia, Alia, at drkiltz.com, and tell her that you were the winner on 629. I will also give her your name so we can send that to you. Uh, don't think we mail to Canada. If you happen to be uh, within the 48, lower 48, you will get the electrolytes. Otherwise, we'll give you something else. All right. So it's past 6 a.m. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. Uh, it's like every day I'm amazed by the healing that people are having by a simple thing. It's simple and it's not, because there are challenges, right? You mentioned people are addicted to sugar, and even when you know in your head that this is the right thing to do because you're eliminating so many things, it can be difficult to continue doing and be persistent. But we don't have to be perfect. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. If it's good enough, then you do it. If you're eating some vegetables or some fruit, uh, you may be making some of these things that you already have either worse or may not have the same beneficial victories. But I personally have found this is the best way to eat and to live and to decrease my risks. And we keep hearing stories like this. It's just amazing. I keep saying that word. It's I'm I continue to be amazed. Thank you for being here, David. Where can we find you? On-
Oh, thank you for having me. I've got I've got a website and a YouTube channel and social media stuff, but you can probably the easiest place to go is just go to my website. If you go to the contact page, there's links to all my other stuff there, and that's Fuzzy Road to Health, spelt just FUZZEE, road to health.com.
All righty. So have a good day, everybody.
See you, everybody.